Constable by C. Lewis Hind, illustrated with 8 reproductions in color. The Valley Farm. In The Valley Farm, exhibited at the Royal Academy in 1835, 2 years before his death, Constable returned to the scenes of his boyhood, to Willie's Lot House on the banks of the Stour. His hand and eyes have lost something of their grip and freshness, but his purpose is as firm as ever. "I have preserved God Almighty's daylight," he wrote, "which is enjoyed by all mankind, excepting only the lovers of old, dirty canvas, perished pictures at 1,000 guineas each, cart-grease, tar, and snuff of candle." The old Adam, you perceive, was still strong in him. Chapter 1. The year 1824. John Constable was 48 years of age in 1824. A memorable year in the history of landscape painting. A date to be remembered is 1824. For in that year, Constable's Hay Wain was hung in the French Salon. That picture, which is now in the National Gallery, marked an epoch in landscape art. Reams have been written about the influence of the Hay Wain upon French art, by critics who are all for Constable, by critics who are complimentary but temperate, and by critics who are lukewarm and almost resentful of the place claimed for Constable as protagonist of 19th century landscape art. A guerrilla critical warfare has also raged around the influence of Turner. Constable and Turner. Most modern landscape painters have, at one time or another, learned from these two great pioneers. Turner is more potent today, but his influence took longer to assert itself. It was not until 1870 that Monet visited London to be dazzled by the range and splendor of Turner at the National Gallery. 46 years had passed since the Hay Wain was exhibited at the Salon. In that half-century, the Barbizon School, those great men of 1830, Corot, Rousseau, Millet, Daubeny, Troyon, Diaz, and the rest, had come to fruition. Constable has been claimed as their parent. Thoré, the French critic, who wrote under the name of G. W. Berger, affirms that Constable was the point de départ of the Barbizon school. But Albert Wolff, another eminent French critic, was not of that opinion. Thoré, writing in 1863, also said that although Constable had stimulated in France a school of painting unrivaled in the modern world, he had had no influence in his own country. A far too sweeping statement. The truth about Constable's influence on French art would seem to be midway between the opinions of Thoré and Wolff. That Constable's exhibits at the Salon of 1824, which included 2 smaller landscapes besides the Hay Wain, did arouse extraordinary interest and did have a potent influence on French landscape art, there is no shadow of doubt. So impressed was Delacroix with the naturalness, the freshness, and the brightness of Constable's picture at the 1824 Salon that after studying them he completely repainted his Massacre of Sayo in the 4 days that intervened before the opening of the exhibition, and the following year Delacroix visited London eager to see more of Constable's work. There is also the testimony of William Brockenden, who, on his return from the salon, wrote thus to the painter of the Hay Wain. The text of the letter is printed in C.R. Leslie's Memoirs of the Life of Constable, a mine of information in which all writers on John Constable, whom de Goncourt called les grandissime maîtres, must delve. My dear Constable, wrote William Brockenden, you will find in the enclosed some remarks upon your picture at Paris. I returned last night and brought this with me. The French have been forcibly struck by them, and they have created a division in the school of the landscape painters of France. You are accused of carelessness by those who acknowledge the truth of your effect, and the freshness of your pictures has taught them that though your means may not be essential, your end must be to produce an imitation of nature. And the next exhibition in Paris will teem with your imitators, or the School of Nature versus the School of Birmingham. I saw one man draw another to your pictures with this expression: look at these landscapes by an Englishman. The ground appears to be covered with dew. Note these passages. They have created a division in the school of the landscape painters of France. Paris will teem with your imitators. The ground appears covered with dew. Constable received the gratifying news very quietly. Writing to Fisher from Charlotte Street, Fitzroy Square, on the 17th of December 1824, he remarked, my Paris affairs go on very well, though the director, the Count Forbin, gave my pictures very respectable situations in the Louvre in the first instance. Yet, on being exhibited a few weeks, they advanced in reputation and were removed from their original situation to a post of honor, 2 prime places in the principal room. I am much indebted to the artists for their alarm in my favor. But I must do justice to the Count, who is no artist, I believe, and thought that as the colors are rough, they should be seen at a distance. They found the mistake and now acknowledge the richness of texture and attention to the surface of things. They are struck with their vivacity and freshness, things unknown to their own pictures. The truth is, they study, and they are very laborious students, pictures only, and as Northcote says, they know as little of nature as a hackney coach horse does of a pasture. However, it is certain they have made a stir and set the students in landscape to thinking. Note the passages. They are struck with their vivacity and freshness. The truth is, they study pictures only. I have quoted these letters at length because they are first-hand authorities and because they state with simple directness the effect of Constable's pictures at the Salon of 1824. The 2 smaller works that accompanied the Hay Wain we may disregard for the moment and ask what is there in the Hay Wain that it should have so startled the French painting world, and that it should have marked an epoch in the history of landscape art. Stand before the Hay Wain in the National Gallery and ask yourself that question. If you are honest, you will admit, perhaps only to yourself, that the Hay Wain looks a little old-fashioned. And you will also admit that the full-sized sketch for the Hay Wain, which you have surely noticed hanging in the Constable room at the Victoria and Albert Museum, pleases you better on account of its greater brilliance, vigour and impulse. The finished picture, though very powerful, seems a little stolid, a little laboured, as if the painter had left nothing to happy accident, but had worked with John Bull conscientiousness over every inch of the canvas. You have in the last decade or two seen so many landscapes, pearly, atmospheric, spacious, vivid and vibrating with sunshine, that this Hay Wain, by honest John, this English pastoral with the great sky, the shimmering water and the leaves carefully accented with colour to represent the flickers of light, does not astonish you. Perhaps you pass it by without a pause, without even a cursory examination. But remember, this is 1909, and the Hay Wain made its sensation in 1824. In those 85 years, landscape painting has progressed at a faster rate than in all the preceding centuries. In 1824, the Hay Wain was a fresh vision, very new and arresting. Why? Simply because Constable returned to nature and painted nature. Again and again has this happened in the history of art from the time of Giotto onwards. The little men falter on, copying one another. Studying pictures only, in Constable's phrase, the public accepts their wooden performances as true art. Then the great man arises, often a very simple, straight-thinking, modest man like this John Constable, and the great man does nothing more miraculous than just to use his own eyes. He refuses to be dictated to by others as to what he should see and do. And lo, the world looks at what he has done and either rejects him altogether for a time or says, "Here is a genius. Let us make much of him." One thing is certain. It was not by taking thought, by planning or scheming, that John Constable made that sensation at the Salon of 1824. It was born in him to be what he became, a painter of nature. How easy and simple it seems. Everybody paints nature today, but in the early years of last century, one had to be a great original to break away from tradition and from academic formulae, and to paint just nature. The awakening came to John Constable in 1802, when he was 26 years of age. In a letter to his friend, Dunthorne, Constable wrote from London, "For the last 2 years I have been running after pictures and seeking the truth at second hand. I shall return to Bergholt, where I shall endeavour to get a pure and unaffected manner of representing the scenes that may employ me. There is little or nothing in the exhibitions worth looking up to. There is room for a natural painter." A natural painter he became. The painter of England, of simple rural scenes. At 47 years of age, he lamented that he had never visited Italy, but the mood passed as quickly as it came, and he cries, "No, but I was born to paint a happier land, my own dear England." And from his own dear old England he banished the brown tree. But the droll story of the brown tree deserves a new chapter. Plate 2. The Hay Wain. Painted in 1821, exhibited in the French Salon in 1824, the Hay Wain, with 2 other smaller works, which had been purchased from Constable by a French connoisseur, aroused extraordinary interest in Paris and had a potent influence on French landscape art. So impressed was Delacroix with the naturalness, the freshness, and the brightness of Constable's picture at the 1824 Salon that he completely repainted his Massacre of Scio in the 4 days that intervened before the opening of the exhibition.